I read in a book about the way the future would look, and the future looks fun to me.
And fun is fine.
There'll be more time for pleasure, and since leisure is a Chucky treasure, the future looks fun to me.
Hi everyone, this is Jonathan Magny, and welcome to today's video. This is something I need to get off my chest because as someone who has loved the brand for a very long time, it pains me to see my favorite IP has fallen from grace in recent years. And no, this is not Warner Bros. Discovery or Disney or anything like that. People already talk about their nonsense already, so there's no point for me to add on to it. No, I'm talking about Chuck E. Cheese's. Well, modern day Chuck E. Cheese. To say Chuck E. Cheese is now a shell of its former self would be a massive understatement. I know that CEC has been a butt of a joke for many years before.
Birthday parties. It is so loud there. It's like louder than a concert at freaking Chuck E. Cheese's. It's like you went in there and there's like freaking airplanes could be flying by your head and you wouldn't even hear it because there's... And plus the screaming kids. No, there's like 16 parties going on. You ever wanted birthday cake, you can just pretend you're at one of them.
And look at your mascot. Your mascot is a giant rat. Put down some rat poison. Kill him.
That's the place. Chuck E. Cheese, the fucking talking rat.
Yeah, and who knows what's inside that rat.
So, yeah, who knows? I mean, you don't know who's in there. It could be a pedophile. I don't know.
Who is Chuck E. Cheese? I don't know.
I'm going back to Chuck E. Cheese for a good minute. Go Dave & Buster's.
But it is disappointing to witness my favorite restaurant going back when I was 6 years old to become a walking, talking, laughing stock. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do a rant video. I may be a very emotional person, but I'm not an angry person either, and I don't like being angry. However, if I don't like something, I'm not afraid to speak my mind, whether you like it or not. You can only keep your opinions to yourself for so long before you explode like a volcano. Trust me, I've been through that for things that I like that a lot of people don't. But Chuck E. Cheese, I'm not letting it slide. Now, before I get into my rant, I want to give it a huge disclaimer. There's going to be a lot of not so family friendly, colorful language throughout the video. If you don't like hearing me swear like a sailor, just click off the video because this is not for you. Also, there are some unpopular opinions about Chuck E. Cheese in general that certain people out there are probably not going to agree with me, and some might say very harsh. I'm going to get this out of the way before I go on with my spiel. I will acknowledge that there are a lot of kids and families out there who do love modern day Chuck E. Cheese. Let me make this perfectly clear. If you guys like modern Chucky, that's totally fine. I'm glad you enjoy it. If you guys like Rockstar Chucky for what it was, that's perfectly fine. Like what you like and don't let anybody, I repeat, anybody, take it away from you. Although I might have questioned some of your tastes regarding Rockstar Chuck for the most part, but other than that, I don't hate any of you guys. As long as you're not being an asshole making ad hominem attacks towards me and my opinions, then I totally respect your opinions. And this video will be my criticism towards CEC Entertainment and how their poor business decision really ran the Chuck E. Cheese brand into the ground. As much as I am very grateful for CEC Corporate for giving us this wonderful restaurant that I love from my childhood, but at the same time, whatever they did something wrong, I have every right to call them out on it. Just please keep it civil and respectful in the comments, because the last thing I want is a bunch of immature DTDs getting triggered over differing opinions and not even hear me out what I had to say. So please and thank you. With that out of the way, it's time for my rant and personal thoughts on modern day Chuck E. Cheese. Now, apologies for being around the bush. I want to give you a huge disclaimer here. Do not, I repeat, Do not go out there harassing and attacking people who worked at Chuck E. Cheese restaurants or certain executives at CEC Entertainment. I'm dead serious. You can say they suck at their jobs and criticizing their bad decisions, and that's all well and good. But please do not go out there personally attacking them as people. I do not condone any threats or any violence whatsoever, especially over a kids restaurant. That's not my intention when making this video. I'm just here expressing my opinions and observation on what CEC is doing right now. What I never, ever do is to intentionally to go out there and attacking them as people. Okay? Got it? I hope you do. Alright, let's continue on with the video, shall we? Even though I love Chuck E. Cheese, I will admit their history has not been perfect. It goes all the way back since the company's first bankruptcy in 1983. An arcade pizza restaurant with the animated robot show sounded like an amazing idea. But lofty expectations, oversaturation, and knowing Bushnell's questionable business practices are trying to compete with showbiz pizza plays left Chuck E. Cheese struggling to be relevant. That and the video game crash really did not help matters either. But despite that, I really do love and adore Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. It has such a Disney-like experience filled with comfy, classic, and warm atmosphere. But alas, we move forward to the Showbiz Pizza Time merger of Chuck E. Cheese with the 1988 remodel, which I want to make a separate video about the remodel in the near future because I will be honest, I actually do really like the 1988 remodel. Tuck Chuck really made Chuck E. Cheese stand out, all thanks to Scott Wilson's performance. And not only that, but the remodel itself looked fantastic. I love how colorful and creative it was. However, one major step down with the 1988 remodel was concept unification. Here's the thing, I really do like the Rocket Fire explosion. Not as much compared to the Pizza Time players, but I do enjoy them. Rocket Fire was cool, but at the same time, I feel like retrofitting the Rocket Fire characters into Chuck E. Cheese characters is probably not the best idea in my opinion. Chuck E. Cheese has his own family-friendly vibe, while Rocket Fire has his own edge that can appeal to all ages. So by merging those two together and having Chuck E. Cheese take all the spotlight, it looks like a hostile takeover that really upset the fans and kids who love the Rocket Fire explosion. I know some people may argue that behind the scenes power struggle between Aaron Fector and the SPT executives is the reason why concept unification exists in the first place, which is factually true, but honestly, I think both sides are in the wrong. Aaron Fector is a sketchy person who is not willing to compromise on anything, and it's pretty much his own fault. And SPT are also in the wrong because not every kid really likes Chuck E. Cheese and prefers showbiz more. So for the fact they give us this bastardized version of what it used to be, it come off as alienating. Personally, I think it would be better off just to keep those two brands separate like during the earlier years of the merger. But hey, name recognition from the Big Smoky Rap more than a Hillbilly Bear, I guess. Granted, over time, people enjoyed the 3-stage for what it was, for the most part, but I don't really enjoy a character looking like sleep paralysis demon that will haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life. But I digress. As for the Operation Dumb Chuck remodel, and by extension the Avenger Chuck remodel, this hot take of mine is gonna piss off a lot of people. But please don't get mad at me. Hear me out on this. I really love Cool Chuck, and I really love Avenger Chuck. Duncan Brandon's version of Chucky will always be my Chucky. So is Scott Wilson and John Wallach as well. I love how unique and colorful the remodels were, and how great entertainment, not to mention the commercial I always obsessed with as a kid. It was beautiful. But, and this is a big but, looking back on it, it's a little bit overrated. Now let me explain. First off, Cool Chuck / Avenger Chuck will always be my nostalgic childhood favorite. But looking at it objectively, he's pretty dated. Being a hip and cool furry rap boy who's all, "How do you do, fellow kids?" may be cool in the 2000s, but not so much now. PTT and Tux Chuck felt more timeless since the character wasn't stuck in that particular time period and can be enjoyed at any age. Second of all, I know Phase 3 and especially Phase 4 was Chuck E. Cheese is at its peak, but the thing is, Chuck E. Cheese was already at its peak in the 80s and 90s. The 2000s? It's okay, but I wouldn't call it peak. I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit in the comments, but I'm just gonna say it. Phase 4 remodel hasn't really aged well. Don't get me wrong, I grew up with Phase 4 and also Phase 3, but at least Phase 3 looks passable. Phase 4 wasn't that great. The remodel has purple walls that not look appealing. I get it because they were trying to match Chucky's shirt, but come on, the art looks not that great either. The Grand Marshal games and the Ambassador Fun ones was okay, but the rest, not so much. I know a lot of people didn't like the Creepy Kids poster during the Avenger era. I thought it was average, nothing special. And thirdly, again, hot take, I'm not a big fan of Studio C. Don't get me wrong, I like Studio C, but I like Studio C in its early days of having Chucky being a late night talk show host in a similar vein as Jay Leno and Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I thought that was really cool, not to mention the Garner Holt animatron of Chucky looks fantastic. However, you guys can think differently as much as you want to, but I do not like the fact that CEC Corporate was trying to push Studio C at the expense of their existing stages. It's one thing to open new stores that host Studio C, that's perfectly fine. But when you remove the existing Cyberamics and 3-stage animatronics stages in favor of Studio C, it's not a good idea because 1, you're wasting a whole bunch of money on replacing the stages already fine as it is, and 2, it makes the entertainment aspect of Chuck E. Cheese lessen and devalues the other characters. Chuck E. Cheese is more than just the main character. Helen Henny, Jasper T. Giles, Mr. Munch, Pasquale, etc. Those characters help contribute to what Chuck E. Cheese is. I don't give a fuck what anybody else says or what the chart says or whatever. CEC wouldn't be CEC without those characters. And it didn't really help when CEC Corporate stopped pushing the Studio C, instead actually fixing the problem by improving entertainment aspect. They decided to do the old-fashioned, how can we make as much money as possible while spending as little effort as possible? Which is why they ditched the late night talk show concept of Studio C and turned it into a cheap, cost-effective, lackluster entertainment. And going back to Phase 4, let's not forget, they took down the showroom walls and balcony seating, which ruins the whole point of what the showroom was, and turned the story into a one big arcade with robots just so happened to be there. But then again, that's a separate video I would love to talk about for another time. Overall, I don't hate Operation Dump Truck and the Cool Chuck reconfiguration, and I do understand why a lot of people loved it. And I loved them too very, very much. But I do feel there's a lot of flaws that a lot of fans seem to overlook. And of course, we get into the infamous Rockstar era, and my god, it is very, very controversial.
What are you waiting for? Let's play! Where a kid can be a kid.
Now, I already touched upon Rockstar in the beginning of my Madison video, so I'll expand my thoughts on it here. Boy, where do I begin? As you guys may know, I really dislike Rockstar Chuck. When I was a kid, I remember reading through the news articles about Chuck E. Cheese getting a new redesign by having Chucky being a completely CGI. I was heartbroken. I love Avenger Chuck so much, and to see this imposter that looks like a DreamWorks character completely disgusted me at the time. And the last straw for me was to say she's his Funner commercial. It's not the new voice of Chucky turned me off. Okay, maybe it was. But saying the word Funner pisses me off because it's so grammatically incorrect that in my 12-year-old brain thought it was the most fucking stupidest thing ever. I absolutely hated Rockstar, and I never ever go back to Chuck E. Cheese ever again. That, I'm more interested in Dave & Buster's more, which is something CEC used to do, but a lot better. I grew out of Chuck E. Cheese, and the last time I went to Chuck E. Cheese was 10 years ago, and when me and my family celebrate my younger sister's birthday, and even then, I still had that I hate Rockstar mentality. Now, looking back on it as an adult, do I still hate the Rockstar era? No, I don't hate it. Yet, I don't love it either. More specifically, the early Rockstar era. Here's the thing. I understand why Rockstar Chuck exists. CEC Entertainment wasn't doing all that well in the late 2000s during the stock market crash. And when Avenger Chuck, as beloved as he was, looked pretty dated, so a new rebrand was definitely needed. And to be fair, the Rockstar gimmick for the Chuck E. Cheese character was a good idea. Hell, in the early 2010s, Avenger Chuck did rock out with a guitar numerous times, so having Chuck E. Cheese being a rock star is a nice change of pace. You go from a snarky smoking rat to an entertaining rat to a hip and cool mouse to a rock star mouse is a good way to adapt with the times from generation to generation. With the voice change of Chucky, like I said, as much as I adore Duncan Brenner's voice of Chucky and left a very special place in my heart, I actually do enjoy Jared Wright's voice of Chucky, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah, at first it did turn me off, especially in the early years. It's like, what the fuck am I listening? But over time, I got used to it because I really loved Bowling for Soup as a teenager, so Jared Wright's voice in Chucky really hits home.
She was gonna shake her ass on the hood of Whitesnake's car.
As a kid, I didn't even know Jared Reddick or Bowling for Soup besides Phineas and Ferb, but now I do, and I love it. Plus, with Jared Reddick being a Chucky/Showbiz kid is something I really respect for. And I might be going off of a tangent. Jared's singing voice for Chucky? Mwah. Chef's kiss. Pure perfection. It is so good! Every time the song comes up and Jared sings, I instantly like it right away. Jared's cover songs and the original songs are so phenomenal. And with the animation for the commercials, I enjoy them for what they are. Well, the early years anyway. With Chucky's character design for the Rockstar era, in my opinion, I prefer Rockstar Chuck when he was 2D instead of CGI. I had nothing against CGI in general, but I'm used to Chucky being 2D. Heck, the original concept for Rockstar Chuck done by Quiz Reg, I believe it was, looks really adorable. I wish it could have kept in 2D. So seeing him being 3D, again, did turn me off because he looks creepy and unsettling to me. With that said though, Real Effects did a good job on what they were given, because the way Chucky moves and flows within the beat of the music in the commercial is absolutely fantastic. But there are some positives to Rockstar. The concept has so much potential and it could have been done so much better, but man, the funner shit left a bad taste in my mouth. And so did a lot of people. If you know about the Funnergate fiasco, this has got to be the biggest marketing blunders I have ever seen from this company. And given how their track record like this, that's saying something. And the sad part about this is that they could have easily been avoided if CEC hired a better marketing team who actually know what the fuck they're doing. Make Rockstar Chuck a gradual change like it was back in the 80s and 90s. Instead of screwing over Duncan Brenner for no reason without even telling him, how about you give Duncan his final performance, tell him we are going a different direction for the Chucky character, and pursue Duncan better opportunities, and then you can switch over to Rockstar with Jared Reddick. And keep him 2D because I like him that way. Hell, instead of Say Cheese is Funner as the first Rockstar song, how about Follow Me to Fun? I love that song. I listened to it over and over and over again for the past weeks or even months. I still love it so much. It's super catchy, super upbeat, and it puts me in a happy mood instantly. Now, Follow Me to Fun could have been my first introduction to Rockstar and would have been the first Rockstar commercial. But yeah, Rockstar turned me off at first, but the song alone makes up for it, and I would have loved Rockstar as much of Avenger. But nope, Funner killed it. It killed it. I get it because Thunder was originally supposed to be a summer song, but come on, how do you fuck that up? But whatever, what do I know? The only thing I can criticize about the Rockstar era currently was the entertainment from their show tapes. As lackluster the entertainment was for the Avenger era, at least the show tapes were competently well made and have a good balance between the three different mediums: live action for the walkarounds, the puppet skits, and the cartoon shorts. But ever since the Rockstar era, okay, at least in the earlier days in the Rockstar era, I still kept that balance, even if some moments can be a little bit ridiculous.
Chucky!
But at the same time, as time went on, probably since 2014, 2015, the balance was pretty much gone, as it relied less and less on the walkarounds and less on the cartoon shorts, and rely more and more on the puppet skits. Not to mention they stopped relying on cover songs and focused more on original songs. I don't know about you all, I'm not the biggest fan of the puppet skits all that much. Sure, there are some that can be cute and a little funny, but I'm sorry, I'm just not really too crazy about it. I know this is ironic coming from me who grew up with the Muppets, Sesame Street, Bear in the Big Blue House, and Ooby as a very young kid. Yeah, the Chucky puppet segment has been around since the 90s and the 2000s, but then again, I'm not a fan of them back in the day either. For the most part, mostly because of how the way they look. The Tux era ones look very ugly to me. At least the Avenger ones are a lot better and are definitely iconic. Rockstar puppets are okay. The early Rockstar puppets I do like because they remind me of the Avenger era. The current ones, they're fine, I guess. Helen and Jasper are the best one. Mr. Munch and Pasquale are okay, but did not look that great in my opinion. And with the Chucky puppet, I'm in the middle on this one because at least he looks adorable and I do like his design. I'll say it's way better than the earlier 2014 puppet that looks like nightmare fuel, like ew. And there's something about the puppet segments, I just find them kind of annoying, and I didn't really care for some of the characters like Ryan the Unicorn or some shit. The puppets, I don't know. If the puppet segment have a good balance with the walkarounds and have good writing, then I wouldn't mind them all that much, like how they used to do back in the 90s and the early 2000s. But the fact that the puppet segment has been on all the freaking time in the Rockstar era really took me out of it. It's like, nah, fuck it, I'm out. I don't know. Maybe it's not for me. I'm not the target audience for it. If you guys like the puppets, good for you, but I'm just not into it. As for their songs though, even though I do miss CC doing cover songs or parody songs of popular artists at the time, their original songs were a mixed bag. There are some really, really good ones that I would consider just as good as the previous eras, but others...
Banana dog, I love you, banana dog. Wash the bus, wash the bus.
Not really that great. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong making songs that appeal to the target demographic. But really, Hippo Platypus, Banana Dog, this shit makes Cocomelon look like Cartoon Planet. Like, do better. Alright, moving on. Before I get into my next topic, at least I will say this. Phase 5 was actually better than Phase 4 in my opinion. If you look at the colors, I find them more vibrant than Phase 4 because it was a lot more appealing to look at. The artwork on the other hand, not so much. When I look at Phase 5, I'm like, why can't they roll this out nationwide? Because at least there are some semblance of creativity and competence there. But sadly, we're living in a late-stage capitalist society, as Phase 5 was way too good to pass up as it came and went just as quickly. Why? Because CZ Entertainment wanted to create their next big plan to revitalize CZ brand for a brand new generation. Even if they completely destroy everything on what made Chuck E. Cheese so goddamn iconic in the first place. Now, I already touched upon 2.0 in my history videos, but here's the full background on 2.0 to get proper context. It all started when CC Entertainment became a private company in 2014. After the damage of the early Rockstar era were trying to drive up sales, Apollo Global Management, a private equity firm mind you, bought CEC Entertainment for $1.3 billion. Thus, Tom Leverton took over as the president of the Chuck E. Cheese brand, and later on acquired Peter Piper's Pizza. Tom Leverton wanted to take the Chuck E. Cheese brand into a major shift in direction. He did oversee Phase 5 to continue the Cool Chuck reconfiguration lineage, but as I said, it was pretty short-lived. However, one of the main highlights for Phase 5 was the then new dance floor concept. In my opinion, the dance floor idea was not as bad as people said it was. I do think it's a good thing to have Chucky walk around costume, to have their own stage to the dance on with the kids. It gives Chucky more freedom to dance on the platform than, say, dancing next to a kids check stand, because that would be awkward. And the thing is, kids and families really enjoy the live stage with Chucky. They love how energetic and interactive Chucky was. The Rockstar Rocker one was a lot more kid-friendly rather than, you know, him being a rat for decades that a lot of kids were really scared of. And the dance floor concept was pretty unique compared to other restaurants at the time. However, CEC Entertainment thought the dance floor is the way forward for the restaurants in order to appeal to the new generation. Instead of continuing on Phase 5 like it was normal, they decided to do a massive rebrand from scratch in order to keep up with the times, or in business terms, drive up sales to please the investors and the shareholders. And what a better time to do it on Chuck E. Cheese 40th anniversary. In the summer of 2017, during a year-long 40 Years of Fun event, CEC Entertainment announced they are partnering up with Tesser to do a complete brand new remodel for the restaurant called Chuck E. Cheese Pizzeria and Games, also known as Chuck E. Cheese 2.0. Chuck E. Cheese 2.0 was basically a clean, fresh, new look for the Chuck E. Cheese restaurants. Not only new games and new foods for the menu, but also new exterior for the logo and vibrant, colorful background, and also new interior as well. New decor, new wooden booths, new carpeting, and of course, a brand new stage. Going back to the dance floor concept during Phase 5, it was tested so well that CEC brought it back for 2.0. What they decided to do with it? Completely remove the long-time Munch's Make Believe band animatronics, which I'll get to it later, and put the dance floor in its place of the showroom, or the birthday zone as they officially call it. And not only that, but put up an entire colorful wall of Chucky and his friends as character bio posters. CEC 2.0 was originally supposed to be a test to see how successful for a new audience. They remodeled 4 CEC stores in San Antonio, Texas, and 3 in Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri combined. Once 2.0 was released to the public in 2017, a lot of people were very, very negative about it. Now, to be fair, there are some casual families who do enjoy 2.0 for what it was. The parents were happy to take their kids there, and the kids love to dance along with Chucky. If you enjoy 2.0, that's totally fine. But on the other hand, I do 250% understand why people hated 2.0 with a burning passion. If you want to know my personal opinion on 2.0, well, I was about to give my positives on 2.0, but I want to tell you my backstory on how I discovered 2.0. For what I remember, after I was done with CEC due to Rockstar, I barely paid attention to what's going on with Chuck E. Cheese. I was passing by my local CEC with having the Phase 5 logo and didn't really think much of it until 2022 when my local had the 2.0 logo. Again, I never really thought much about it, and I didn't like the logo anyway, which I'll also get to it later. Then in 2023, I remember watching Yesterworld's entertainment video talking about the history of CEC and mentioning about 2.0 at the end. Once again, I just shrug it off. Now, apologies for sounding like a broken record, but the reason why I was dismissive of 2.0, not because it looks bad, but because Rockstar still broke me at the time, and this new look is not going to pull me in. The red flags about 2.0 didn't pop up until I got back to becoming a CEC fan again in 2025. When I was binge watching Isarob's history video about Chuck E. Cheese location, my first impression about 2.0 was CEC was remodel a handful of their store or have some minor 2.0 updates from their store here and there, while everything else remains the same, like it keep the old artworks, the robots and stuff like that. But little did I know, that is not the case. CEC remodels almost every single store throughout the nation. Every single one. Every time you turn around, your location gets 2.0, or another city gets 2.0, or your state gets 2.0, 2.0 here, 2.0 there, moving all the old stuff replaced with the new stuff. It's like leaping lizards. What the fuck are you doing? This is absolutely insane. But the more I dig deep into 2.0, the more it gets me upset. Which, we'll get to there when we get there. What is some positive about 2.0? Well, I actually do like the green background for the exterior. It does give them more character than the previous remodels. Phase 3 and 4 exterior may be iconic, but they are pretty lacking in the color department. I do like the cursive scripted lettering for the older 2.0 stores. It does give me that PTT vibe, which I do appreciate. I do like the one with the Stone Oak location where it has a slanted part at the top of the exterior. I thought it looked fantastic. Also, I know that a lot of people don't like call the store Chuck E. Cheese instead of Chuck E. Cheese's, but I don't mind it. Let's be honest, a lot of casual people have called Chuck E. Cheese for decades without the possessive apostrophe S. So simply calling it Chuck E. Cheese, I'm actually fine with. And that's just for the exterior. For the interior, the only nice thing I can say about the interior besides the dance floor was the booths. I heard they're not that comfortable, but at least they look nice. Also, the open kitchen Pasquale Pizzeria concept was interesting. I like the idea of an open kitchen inside of a CEC. You get to see the workers actually cooking fresh, new, and non-recyclable pizza every day. Very nice. And yeah, that's about it. As for the negatives, Jesus Christ, where do I begin? First off, even though I'm okay with the exterior for the most part, I fucking hate the interior. The interior for the 2.0 store looks so boring. It's boring. It's bland. It doesn't have any colors at all. Why can't they use the Phase 5 colors for 2.0? It will look much better. I know some people will argue that this whole white walls were a throwback to the 1988 remodels for having white walls, but here's the difference. At least the 1988 remodels have rainbow checkers, which really makes it stand out. 2.0? Not so much. Having white walls with gray stripes decal did not look pleasing to me. Sure, it may be a step up from purple walls, but come on! At least come up with a better color variation than this. Besides the wall, I really hate the art for 2.0. Say what you will about Phase 4 art, at least they're just okay at best, yet average at worst. Hell, even Phase 5 reused renders art looks a lot better than this. 2.0 art looks like it came out of Walmart. It's so generic and unimaginative. I get that CC is broke to hire actual artists to do the art for their store, but they could have put so much more effort than what we have gotten. Can you imagine going to a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant that has art looks like a modern day version of TGI Fridays? Keep in mind, Chuck E. Cheese's demographic is ages 3 to 8. I cannot see a fucking 8-year-old in this day and age will say, yeah, this party art is so cool. Chuck E. got that riz with the colorful silhouettes. Holy skibbity, the colorful character bio posters. No cap, this ish is the GOAT. No one ever fucking says that. They're gonna look at it for 2 seconds and then quickly go to the games. If CC doesn't give a shit, then why should we give a shit? I know some people think it's not that big of a deal. Oh, it's just generic design choice. It's not that deep. But the thing is, the art is what made CEC stand out compared to other restaurants, before or since. The colorful presentation, the parody poster, the record poster, the colorful props, etc. set the standard to what CEC was when it came to the interior design. It has always been unique. Not to mention, they have actual artists who put their own craft to make CEC, well, CEC. Very Disney-like, in fact. But once you stripped all of that away and gave us something so generic and lame, it did not feel anything special. It just feels corporate and soulless. And second of all, the current Rockstar logo for 2.0 is god-awful. As someone who loves graphic design and logo at the age of 9, I'm very, very critical when it comes to corporations changing their logos. If it doesn't look good, I'm not afraid to say it doesn't look good. If people can criticize the 2009 Nickelodeon logo, I can criticize the modern Chuck E. Cheese logo. Giving Rockstar Chuck a minimalistic look is one of the most ugliest things I have ever seen. Simplistic logos in general were always terrible, but when it comes to Chuck E. Cheese, they used to be creative and consistent when it comes to their logos. Throughout all eras, they kept Chucky his rat look, despite being turned into a mouse in the 90s. At least Chucky is still Chucky, but Rockstar is the polar opposite. At least the 2013 version was fine. I had no problem with it. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with the 2015 logo, but 2.0? I hate to pull Nathan Speeds, sorry not sorry, but people who uses Microsoft Paint for free can create a 10 times better logo than this crap. I cannot believe people would get paid millions of dollars to design this ugly ass looking no eyebrows Rockstar Chuck that even 5-year-olds can get creeped out. Chucky was supposed to be cute and friendly. The previous logo showcased that he was friendly, but also cool. But with 2.0, Chuck did not look all that inviting in my opinion. He looks bland and soulless. It's like a plain tortilla chip. Yeah, it looks clean, but where's the spice? Where's the sauce? If you're gonna give me a plain ass tortilla chip without the spice in them, then I'm not gonna eat them. Sure, there are some boring people out there who do eat plain tortilla chips. Different strokes for different folks, but god damn it, spice things up for once! Same thing with Chuck E. Cheese. If they were to give 2.0 Chuck eyebrows, it would still look bad, but at least it will look more tolerable. Or hell, go back to the 2013 logo for 2.0. All of us were fine with it. Don't fix something that isn't broken. And thirdly, let's address the elephant in the room.
Hi everybody, I'm back, and I told you it wouldn't take that long.
No, not that elephant in the room. I'm talking about the one last thing that I hated about 2.0. All the other stuff I mentioned were bad, but this was the final straw that broke the camel's back. You guys know what's coming. I absolutely abhor the decision of Chuck E. Cheese getting rid of their animatronics. Now, before I get into my rant, let me make this perfectly clear. And I know there's gonna be obnoxious fucking kids out there or typing in the comment section below saying shit like, oh, why are you mad at CEC get rid of the robots? Do you understand economics? First of all, sit down and shut the fuck up. Second of all, you don't need to listen to what I'm saying. Okay? Thank you very much. Here's the thing. I can understand why Chuck E. Cheese wants to get rid of their animatronics. I get it. Animatronics do not make money. The novelty of having robotic animal bands inside of a family arcade restaurant has worn out decades ago, and the casual audience are, for the most part, not interested in those type of things anymore. It's very, very expensive and difficult to maintain to keep the robots up to date and working again, especially when a lot of the old parts are no longer manufactured anymore due to them being incredibly dated, which left most of them being in a state of disrepair or a lack of care. But then again, this whole kerfluffle is nothing new. I know a lot of people like to blame Tom Leverton for the decision to get rid of the animatronic. I still blame him for that too, don't get me wrong, especially throwing kids under the bus. But the more you dig deep into it, CEC was thinking about phasing the animatronics all the way back in 1987. in which it had the surprise video wall concept. And Dick Freight, in his own words, we don't need animatronics in our restaurant. Oh, and did I mention they got rid of the showroom walls and stopped programming the curtains during phase 4? That's how much CEC wanted to get rid of animatronics for a very long ass fucking time. I get all that. I don't like it either, but that's just a fact of the matter. The reality is that kids today love digital interactive stuff. They have fun playing the dance floor. They love dancing along with Rockstar Chuck walk around. They love watching the YouTube puppet videos on the video wall. If CEC changes are doing very well for the kiddies, at least they did something right. However, with that said, here's what really pisses me off about CEC when getting rid of their animatronics. It's not so much they're phasing out the animatronics in favor of the dance floor and video wall is really gets me. I still fucking hate it, but I sort of see why they did it. But it's more so the way they handle it really gets me. Going back to what I said about CEC thinking about getting rid of the animatronics for decades, there was a time, even during its heyday, that Chuck E. Cheese corporate has a policy that the employees still had to follow to get rid of the animatronics and artwork. Whenever a Chuck E. Cheese location gets closed or remodeled, a lot of the old material has to be removed in favor of the new stuff. Which, okay, that's a standard thing to do in order to keep the store up to date. But here's the catch. Not only do they have to remove the animatronic, but they had to destroy them! I'm talking smashing them bitches with a sledgehammer, cutting them in half with a chainsaw, ripping their arms off, slash their faces, spray painting them, slicing and dicing to pieces, and all that other shit. Once they're de-identifiable, the employees have to take a picture or a video of the animatronic being destroyed and unusable and send the evidence back to corporate so they can properly dispose of them. In my opinion, this has got to be the most disgusting, outdated, and outright terrible fucking decision that corporate has ever made. Like, are you fucking kidding me? The employees and the technicians and programmers are busting their asses off of making the animatronic to be as good as possible, to make the show be amazing as possible, and wanting to maintain them as they possibly can. And yet you're telling me that these robots, which has been around in their fucking history since 1977, are completely worthless to you all? Are you crazy? Oh, it didn't even stop there. CEC was trying to justify their reason, which I thought was fucking bullshit, on why their de-identification policy was put in place and destroyed the animatronics. The reason why they do this shit was because they want to protect their IP and the character likeness. Now, I'm not really mad about this excuse to some extent because I do understand what CEC is coming from. I really do. If some cloud chaser out there trying to use my character likeness and IP for nefarious purposes, I'm definitely taking legal action on that shit. But here's the problem. Their justification is
it's so that someone doesn't use those animatronics to start a competing pizza chain.
Excuse me, what?
So let me get this straight. So you destroy your animatronics so you don't want anyone to use them to start a competing pizza restaurant? You could make the argument that back in the 80s, there were tons of CEC knockoff restaurants or animatronic restaurants in general, or in some cases, there were restaurants that used the Cyberamids and retrofit them as different characters, like Mark's Funtime, Billy Banjos, or JJ Raccoon and stuff like that. And while that might be true, and you don't want to lose business by letting someone rip off your signature look, but here's the flawed logic with their stupid policy that many don't seem to get. They did this shit to themselves! When Pizza Time Theater closed their stores, they auctioned off a lot of their stuff, including their animatronics. Sure, you may say that it's a completely different time than it is now, but that doesn't change the fact that they have no problem auctioning off their animatronics back then. In fact, CEC are the ones who were creating the problem that they fucking caused it! You cannot seriously tell me with a straight face that this policy makes perfect sense when in reality it doesn't! That's like saying KB Toys wanted to trash their Toy Soldier mascot in front of their store just because they didn't want anyone to use them so it could be the next FAO Schwartz. Like, who the fuck does that? Anybody. does anybody in 2025 wants to make a competing piece of shit using animatronics, especially in this economy? Man, that is so fucking sad. Say what you will about these CEC knockoff restaurants, at least they're craving original and doing their own thing. Also, before I moved on, here's another flawed logic about their policy that pissed me off the most. You don't want anyone to use their bodies to make a competing chain. Okay, fair enough. But what if they don't want to make a competing chain and just love looking at them, collecting them, and preserving their history in educational context? Call me crazy, but animatronics are considered an art form from entertainment. Granted, not as much compared to traditional animation or puppetry, but animatronics is another form of entertainment that utilizes technology to its fullest. You enter a different world where the characters come to life and give you a great experience that no one has ever done before. You see why people love the Pizza Time players, the Rocket Fire Explosion and stuff like that. It's because there are great characters and have wonderful personalities and deliver great chemistry between them and the audience. And the wonderful thing about the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic is that they inspire kids to get interested in animatronics. You want to know why? Thanks to Five Nights at Freddy's. I may not be the biggest fan of FNAF, nor was he even into it, even during its heyday in 2014. But say what you will about FNAF giving the animatronics a bad name. At least it helps spark interest in animatronics again, including kids. Now that I do love and respect for. And no, don't give me that fucking bullshit ass excuse that FNAF is the reason why CEC want to destroy the animatronics. That is an absolute lie. Unless CEC Entertainment confirms that otherwise, it is a gross exaggeration and try to make this whole thing look worse than it already is. Okay? I don't want to hear any of this crap in the comments. And even without FNAF association, kids love seeing the CEC character dance and move. There's so much charm to them. Kids love seeing the characters singing a whole bunch of popular songs. Kids want to make their own animatronics because it looks so cool. And with the animatronics, it also gives it the nostalgic vibe due to the parents who grew up with CEC when they were kids, who are now older and they have kids of their own and want to share their stories with them. Finally, it can also be an educational tool when you use how to program, build, and customize animatronics or gadgets. Sure, it does take a lot of hard work and dedication, but when you put a lot of love and passion into it, it makes all the difference. So for the fact that CEC really want to do away with the animatronic like this is very, very upsetting to me. Sure, they are a business, they can make decisions however they want, but I just think it's ridiculous and wasteful. Honestly, if they were to auction off the animatronic like they used to, then none of this would ever happen. Granted, it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but at least 100 times better than destroying their own history. But whatever, the damage has already been done. So that's all I have to say about Chuck E. Cheese 2.0 overall. Pizzeria and games had a lot of potential to be a great shakeup for Chuck E. Cheese, but a lot of things they get rid of or implement are going against what made CEC so great in the first place, and they decided to destroy their own history instead of respecting it and preserving it. Even though there are a couple of decent things I like about it, but other than that, CEC 2.0 was just awful and a huge disappointment. Phew, finally got that out of my system. Anyways, let's move on.
Chuck E. Cheese, where a kid can be a kid.
Ever since 2017, CEC enacted the current pizzeria and games remodel throughout most of their locations all across the United States. There was an attempt by CEC to become a public company again in 2019 through a merger with Leo's Holding, but that never went anywhere. But then, the 2020 decade happened. This is where Chuck E. Cheese was at a point of no return. If you thought 2.0 was bad for disregarding their past, this gets even worse. In early 2020, Tom Leverton left and replaced by his current CEO, David McKillops, which used to work at Six Flags. Then, COVID happened, and CEC hit really hard during the pandemic, thus entering a second bankruptcy. With David McKillop in charge, the entire CEC landscape had been going through a major restructuring. They closed down a lot of their stores, including iconic ones such as Cruiser, California, Diamond and Bar, California, and Shiny Happy Danvers, Massachusetts, etc. They started out their own Ghost Kitchen spin-off brand during the pandemic called Pasquale Pizza and Wings, which that was a thing. They had tried out frozen pizza and mystery egg goodies through their grocery stores, and finally having a Chuck E. Cheese become a multimedia brand instead of a restaurant entertainment brand by giving its own live-action movie, game show, and an animated series. It remains to be seen what's going on to the live-action movie and game show because there's no information about it, but at least the Chucky and Friends cartoon did get greenlit, and a holiday special will be released later this month at the time of this writing. So my impression with David McKillop is that I understand what he was trying to do. Let's be honest, Chuck E. Cheese has gotten overshadowed by other family entertainment center nowadays, just like Dave & Buster's, Bolero, Urban Air, Main Event, and Round 1 Arcade. He was trying to salvage the brand in any way he could in order for CEC to stay relevant. On one hand, I do get that, but on the other hand, he come off as, how you put it this way, bite things off more than he can ever chew. Instead of fixing the problem with 2.0, he continues to run that shit into the ground. Also, after CEC got out of bankruptcy and recovered from the pandemic in late 2020, they continue to remodel all their stores into 2.0, or in some cases, refreshing their stores into 2.0 for a song. What an incredibly stupid idea! You got out of the pandemic and you need time to recover, so why the fuck do you continue to waste hundreds of millions of dollars of a shitty remodel that's not even going to work? It just makes no goddamn sense. No sense whatsoever. It would be like if a dude still hitting his head through a brick wall despite having severe multiple head injuries. But alas, they didn't care, and the 2.0 play continues. But of course, fans have enough. With the removal of the animatronics, CEC fans have been petitioning, campaigning, and protesting or using surveys so that the company can stop destroying the animatronics, going all loud and proud until it reached the executives' ears. And surprisingly enough, it did work. In November 2023, CZ Entertainment announced that Chuck E. Cheese in Northridge, California will be keeping its animatronics as their permanent home, and everybody was really excited about it. This was the first time that CC actually preserved their own history, all thanks to the fans. Yes, finally! Plus, Nolan Bushnell also visiting Northridge with David McKillop, so that's awesome. But wait, it gets even better! All throughout 2024 and mid-2025, CEC Corporate confirms more locations will be keeping its animatronic, such as Pinesville, North Carolina, Nayowitz and Hicksville, New York, Springfield, Illinois, and finally, Willowdale in Canada. I will give CC Entertainment major props for actually listening to the fans and keeping more and more stages, because seeing stuff like this made me wish that most locations should get the Legacy Store treatment. Not because of the animatronics, but because the locations are also historic. Out of all the Legacy stores, Pinesville and Hicksville are the best ones. Hicksville in terms of the fantastically working cyberamics, Pineville in terms of everything else, a phenomenal 3-stage, and a nice retro corner filled with CEC memorabilia and stuff like that. That's absolutely awesome. Seeing the video of the Grammy opening of Pineville really does hit home with me, because seeing a bunch of not just fans, but a lot of kids and parents all come together, singing a whole bunch of songs and loving the animatronics as a huge event, it is incredible. With that said though, even though I'm grateful that corporate was able to keep some of the stages, they still find ways to screw it up. First of all, I find Northridge to be very disappointing. It is one of the few stores that did not get the 2.0, and they kept the old Phase 3 look for so long, though La Mesa, California is currently holds that title up until it closed in 2024. Northridge has that cool retro vibe, and I think it does make sense to become a legacy store. But not like this. Northridge got 2.0 and is absolutely lame. Second of all, Northridge didn't even feel retro at all. They could have kept the old artwork, the showroom walls, and the shelf, but nope, they got rid of all of them. In my opinion, it is a huge slap in the face. For what? Just because you want to add a dance floor and a video wall? Give me a fucking break. Thirdly, Similar to number 2, a lot of legacy stores have 2.0, and they come off as deceptive and trying to make it all retro when it's not. It didn't even feel that much different compared to your average 2.0 store currently, except the animatronics just so happened to be there. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that animatronics are still here, but again, where's the vibe? Fourthly, I had to question corporate's decision on what location deserved the legacy store treatment. You mean to tell me that Nayoit, New York deserved to be a legacy store far more than Spokane, Washington, or Mayfield Heights, Ohio that hosted one of the last UC alphas left in existence? Why? Nayoit is nothing to write home about. The only thing people remember about Nayoit was the Grammy opening featuring the return of Avenger Chuck and Throwback Thursdays. That's it. Everything else, I don't really care. And fifthly, I'm just going to throw it out there as a bonus. The way CEC Corporate poorly handled the last road stage at Dixie Road in Canada is beyond insulting. Honestly, I was just going to have to blame the company's marketing executive, Mark Kupferman. He's originally promised the fans that Dixie Road was going to be the legacy store, and the road stage would be perfect home for it. But for whatever fucking reason, he decided to say, nah, let's destroy it because it's unsalvageable. But hey, at least we pick up the pieces from the road stage. Let's have Willowdale be our legacy store. Aren't you guys happy? Fuck no, we're not. It is a complete slap in the face. Not only you blatantly fucking lied through your teeth towards the fan base, Mark, but you also made the entire road stage legacy completely extinct. Like, all the road stage are gone now. It's absolutely not only disrespectful towards Joel Kamen, who designed the road stage during concept unification, but it's pure incompetence. You say the road stage was unsalvageable, and you have an entire goddamn warehouse full of animatronics and artwork that is supposedly say you could have easily fixed them. It's not either gonna affect your pocketbook anyway, but no. Oh, we can't promise you guys that it's going to be fixed. That is some fucking bullshit, and you know it. But alas, the road stage died, and Willowdale became a legacy store instead of Mississauga, which, spoiler alert, it sucked. I mean, I can go on and on and on about so many flaws about the legacy stores, but I won't because we'll be here all night. Overall, even though I'm glad that CEC does care about their animatronics again, to some extent, and there are very nice things about the legacy stores, but other than that, I just wish they would have handled legacy store a lot better. Plus, I felt they should have done legacy store years ago during 2.0's conception. But hey, what do I know? The next thing I want to talk about is their spin-off stores. Now, when it comes to Chuck E. Cheese, there are no strangers of making their own spin-off stores. They tried out with Zap's Bar and Grill during the Pizza Time Theater era, and that pretty much came and went. They also there's TJ Hartford during the Cool Chuck and Avenger era, which, again, that was the thing. But under Dave McKell's leadership, CEC was going all out with their spin-off ventures. Remember when I said that CEC wanted to branch out their IPs into multimedia? Well, their spin-off stores is one of them. It all started sometime around 2023 and 2024 when CEC partnered up with various hotels such as Westgate and Holiday Inn to have some small arcade areas in their hotel called Chuck E. Cheese Fun Zone. It opened various spots around Florida and one in California. Not much to say about it, it's just a typical arcade but with CEC branding slapped onto it, so who really cares? Then around the same time, CEC partnered up with California Dreamin' Entertainment to host their own spin-off water park in Sacramento, California, called Chuck E. Cheese Splash Zone, which replaced Raging Waters water park that was closed in 2022. Chuck E. Cheese Splash Zone was your typical water park. Instead, they're going to have the stage with the further walk-arounds and an arcade and Pasquale's pizza stand. It's still stages of development. It should be open sometime around 2026 or later on. In my opinion, I don't know what to make of it. When I think of CEC, I don't think of it being a water park. Yes, water parks are popular amongst kids and families, but they've always been popular amongst kids and families for a very long time. So the fact that CEC want to do a water park now is such a strange move. I know people are going to comment saying shit like, but what about Sesame Street? They also have a water park. First of all, shut up. Second of all, at least Sesame Street still striking while the iron is hot. Plus, with the brand being very flexible, it does make sense to have their own water park. And thirdly, Sesame Street is more popular than Chuck E. Cheese. That's a fact. Not opinion, but a fact. Sure, not as much during its prime, but compared to Chuck E. Cheese, Sesame Street is still huge, and they're not stopping anytime soon. So yeah, I think Chuck E. Cheese water park is completely unnecessary, but hey, it could have been worse. At least they're being honest about what they were doing instead of completely lying about it. Which brings us to the next spin-off venture, Chuck's Arcade. Oh my god. I had a lot to say about Chuck's Arcade because they just... Okay, what does Chuck's Arcade come from? It was originally called Fun Spot Arcade. Fun Spot Arcade was opened in September of 2024, in which it was an independent arcade that has nothing to do with Chuck E. Cheese branding. So basically, imagine Chuck E. Cheese Fun Zone without the CEC branding. However, here's the twist. Instead of opening it at a hotel, they open it inside of a mall. Really? I can understand you wanted to do that back in the 80s and early 90s because, hey, malls were very popular back then. It makes sense. But why in the 2020s? Malls are dying and no one wants to go to the mall anymore due to online shopping. So why does a mall arcade in this day and age is literally beyond me. But yeah, Fun Spots Arcade came and went and no one gives a shit about it. And CC Entertainment knew this was a problem. As for what I understand, Fun Spot Arcade didn't bring any sales, so they have no choice but to kick the bucket. However, for some reason, CC is not giving up on the mall arcade concept just yet. Since we live in the era of nostalgia, CC Entertainment decided to repurpose Fun Spot Arcade into a retro arcade. In March of 2025, they opened up Chuck's Arcade. Chuck's Arcade is a successor to Fun Spot Arcade, except for giving it a nostalgia twist. They brought back the Pizza Time Theater logo, added a retro arcade cabinets, and best of all, they brought back the animatronics. When I heard about Chuck's Arcade, I was excited. Keyword, was. And that was mostly because of CC embracing their past. It would have been a dream of mine to have Pizza Time Theater came back in the modern era. As flawed as the legacy store was, at least it was a step in the right direction. More so than I thought. However, the more and more I dug into it as time moved on, the more and more I hated it. Now to be fair, I never went to Chuck's Arcade personally because I never had one in my area, but even then, from the looks of it, I really don't want to. First of all, just like the legacy stores, Chuck's Arcade didn't really feel retro at all. The only retro thing about it was the branding and a small number of reproduction retro arcade cabinets. Everything else were modern arcade games you could find at any regular Chuck E. Cheese location or local arcade. I find it incredibly lazy. Second of all, their marketing was so deceptive and misleading. When Chuck's Arcade first announced, it was advertised as the retro arcade geared towards adults, or Chuck E. Cheese for adults. Bitch, please. If it was Chuck E. Cheese for adults, then why the fuck do you have a trampoline zone in front of your goddamn arcade, huh? If it was for Chuck E. Cheese for adults, then why the fuck do you still have play pass cards instead of tokens and paper tickets? If it wasn't Chuck E. Cheese for adults, then why the fuck do you have a price counter that was full of cheap plastic shit that you couldn't get at a regular Chuck E. Cheese or online? And by the way, here's the most wildest thing about the last part. In one of the Chuck's Arcade, I heard it was Beaufort, Georgia. I don't know, and I don't really care. They put up an amazing merchandise, full to the brim of Pizza Time Theater stuff, just as classic plushies and t-shirts and things like that. Those are so amazing. After that, poof, gone. Gone. Can you imagine that you advertise cool shit to the customers in your shitty arcade only to pull them out at the last minute? What else is there? Bella plushies? Fuck that shit, man. You cannot blatantly lie to your audience by giving us great merch that you could have made so much money that we will never going to get. That'd be like if Toys R Us were to advertise retro Jeffrey plushies in front of their outlet stores or Macy pop-up stores, only to quickly pull them out and replace them with the current Jeffrey plushies. If that was me, I would have been pissed. If you are going to advertise your cool merch, at least freaking deliver it. If you're going to lie to us, then I'm not going to give this company my money. It's simple as that. And thirdly, this is a tipping point for me. Even though I'm glad that Chuck E. Cheese are now starting to preserve the animatronics, the way they handle it in Chuck's Arcade, it come off as they're learning the wrong lesson. Now to be fair, giving the animatronics a taxidermy treatment is not a horrible idea in my opinion, because at least it's better than getting destroyed. But when you decide to break the arm mechanics inside and put them in a waving position, which by the way destroy the arm, it's just as bad as destroying them in its entirety. It's like, what are you doing? Just leave them alone and let them perform as it is. Like, Jesus Christ, why is this so hard? It boggles my mind how much CEC fumbled the bag with Chuck's Arcade. That could have been so much more. Above all else, the best Chuck's Arcade location has to be one in Kansas City. I thought it was pretty good, and I do like it kept the old artwork. Aside from that, Chuck's Arcade overall is pure nostalgia bait and just wasted potential. With the right people in charge, this could have won some fans back, but nope, CAC decided to say fuck the fans and give them such a mediocre, lame experience. Was it the worst thing in the world? No, but it's extremely disappointing and falls short of what could have been. Alright, so the last Chuck E. Cheese spin-off chain that I want to talk about that was announced not too long ago and is set to release this month actually, and this is called Chuck E. Cheese Adventure World. Okay, what is that? Well, I do mention that Chuck's Arcade had a trampoline zone in one location in St. Petersburg, Florida. Chuck E. Cheese opened up a tons of trampoline zones throughout their location in the US since 2023. And here's what gets interesting. They opened up Superhero Playground and Adventure Zone as well, not just in the US but also international countries as well. Why is that? Well, the trampoline play places are very popular right now with young kids. I mean, look at Sky Zone or Urban Air, for example. And CEC want to get that piece of that pie. So from a business perspective, I can understand why. Open up a new chain that is exclusive to the trampoline and slide would have been all fine and dandy if it wasn't for the fact you completely ripped off Discovery Zone. Think about it. Slides, ball pits, mini arcade, it's Discovery Zone. I don't understand what the point you're trying to do this. All you're doing is chasing trends rather than focusing on their own core vision, which is basically a family casino arcade restaurant that is a mini Disneyland. Adventure World is not something you put the company back on the map or anything. Why do you need to go there when you already have Sky Zone or Urban Air, which doing the same thing as Adventure World except better? And don't even get me started on the marketing. Here's the thing. I might piss people off when I say this. I have nothing against AI in general, because that's where the future goes to at this point. But what I hate is generative AI. It's gross, it's ugly, it removes the humanity of the art. And the fact that Charles Entertainment Cheese, of all people, are now using AI makes me want to vomit! Hell, Toys R Us did the exact same thing, and look how that turned out. So with them putting AI slop in front of Adventure World and other things, it just reeks of not only desperation and trying to make CEC brand relevant, but also trying to cut the biggest corners or to save a few rusty pennies. Because God forbid paying actual human artists will make the product better. Oh, and by the way, the fact that you have Justin Lee, who is the director of the construction for CEC, doubles down and gaslighting your own fans for calling them out for using AI. Wow! The absolute audacity of this motherfucker. Imagine you had to be that much of a douchebag who is in a high-level position to jeer and double down on constructive criticism to your own customers for calling you out for using the most repulsive, regurgitated shit imaginable. Honestly, Justin Lee and Mark Kupferman for going this bullshit, you can go fuck yourselves. Oh, here's another fucking bag of tricks. We have the head of the PR team of CEC caught in 4K for making a fake 5-star Disney Shill style review of Adventure World. Things have gotten so bad that CEC Corporate decided to have the reviews hidden after the fact. Try to wrap your head on that one, boys and girls. Say what you will about Chuck's Arcade, as bad as that one was, if not worse, but at least it does show a lot of promise. Adventure World? It was doomed from the start. Not only the concept of a trampoline park diluted the CEC brand, but with having AI trash and a very bad PR from the executives, really does go to show they had no idea what they're doing. It's like, what the hell is going on over at Irving? Why isn't no one putting a stop to this? It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. I have no idea how well Adventure World is going to perform since it's still too early to tell. It's going to come out sometime November 10th in Arlington, Texas, so I don't know. If you're curious about Adventure World and you want to see it for what it is, then go for it. But there are other trampoline places that you can take your kids with, so don't even bother. Oh, and also just a quick update. When I was almost finished writing the script for this video, Adventure World has a soft opening on November 7th, while the real opening was on November 10th. And we get to see what Adventure World actually looks like on the inside. And yeah, that's exactly how I expected it. Besides the gross AI shit, it's just a cheap-ass Discovery Zone ripoff, nothing out of the ordinary. Oh yeah, and this comment on Reddit pretty much sums it up best. I think people like the guy who recorded this thinks it's just AI making the people upset. This place in general, it just looks cheap and cramped. The equipment looks cheap, and the designs, besides the gross AI, looks pretty tacky, and it doesn't look good to me from any angle. I don't see how people would choose this place all over FEC's and DFW Metroplex. Yep, it sums it up perfectly. Also, I might be going on a tangent here. I love on their Adventure World website that they advertise no arcade games or pizza or prizes. Okay. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I don't know about you guys. I really do not like David McKill's leadership over at CEC right now. I do get what he was trying to go for, but like I said, it come across as throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks. Instead of making CEC brand better, he decided to open up a bunch of spin-off ventures in hope of making the company some cash, even though you completely missed the point of what made CEC so great in the first place. And despite CEC getting out of their second bankruptcy in 2020, this year in 2025, however, they're in $660 million in debt, and there are a lot of private investors who want nothing to do with them. Gee, I wonder why. To be fair, I don't blame them, considering that the brand has been tainted in recent years. CEC was originally supposed to pay off their debt by mid-2026, or May 2026, but in September of this year, they signed a $625 million private credit term loan agreement, and their extension will be due September of 2030. So at least it will give them time on what to do with the brand going forward. I mean, look at the bright side. At least they'll make it to 50, so we'll see what happens. Now, before I wrap things up, I have to talk about a certain character in the Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater universe that has been on my mind for a while. It's a new Chuck E. Cheese character called Bella Bunny. A lot of people don't really like this character. In my opinion, I don't really hate Bella Bunny. I thought she was cute. However, I'm not the biggest fan of her either, and that's mostly because she's there. There's nothing interesting about her. What's so interesting about her other than she's a token Hispanic furry bunny girl? That's what I thought. Well, I do understand people didn't like the fact that Bella were replacing Pasquale for the drums. I don't like it either, but at the same time, I don't, because it's not like CEC Corporate have a huge pure hatred for Pasquale or anything. Otherwise, they would got rid of him a long time ago. Also, this might be a hot take here. I think Bella Bunny could work in the Pizza Time Theater era. I mean, you really do think about it. You have a variety of guest stars like Harmony Howlett, Madam Oink, etc. Bella could definitely fit right in. I don't think it's really fair to crap on Matt Daniel for the creation of Bella Bunny. He could only do what the higher-ups told him to do. It's similar thing what happened with Xbox, in which people bitch about its CEO, Phil Spencer, for a lot of bad decisions at Xbox recently. I'm not saying Phil Spencer is entirely blameless, but the ones that should be blamed for the downfall of Xbox are the tippy-top executives at Microsoft, Satya Nadella and Amy Hood. Same thing with CEC. So, do I want Bella to be phased out? Yes and no. Mostly no. No, because there's a lot of potential to Bella that I could have explored more. But on the other hand, yes, to some extent, because Bella works best as just a side character like Ryan the Unicorn or Steve Waters, rather being part of Munch's Make Believe band. In my opinion. After all, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But, hey, that's just me. If you like Bella, good for you. I thought she was okay. She's cute. She's fine. But, could have been better. Now, I will talk about other things that happened to CEC in recent memory, like the arrest in Tallahassee, Florida, which, the less said about that, the better. Or the sexual harassment lawsuit that has been going on, which I find it even more disgusting than the robots being destroyed. And I feel bad for the former employees, and hopefully they'll seek justice. And don't even get me started on that stupid ass Friday Nights of Fun event. You shamelessly capitalize on the FNAF movie while treat your audience like idiots at the same time. Shit, I can rant about how Mark Coverman be a complete unprofessional gaslighting asshole on Reddit. I can go on, but I won't because I don't want to drag it on longer than necessary, so I think it's best to end it here. Overall, it's very disappointing to see how Chuck E. Cheese has fallen in recent years. They completely lost the plot on who they were and made a lot of stupid decisions that pissed off a lot of fans. They completely removed and destroyed their own history. They completely oversaturated themselves with a whole bunch of nonsense. And they completely shot themselves in the foot by turning the best place where kids can be kids to just a lame baby arcade. As of now, Chuck E. Cheese is a shell of his former self. And it's very sad to me because I grew up with this place that makes me happy. It's just a shame that it's turned into a soulless corporate product that lost all of its magic. If I was in charge of CEC as the CEO, I would immediately stop 2.0, keep the animatron, and revert back to Pizza Time Theater and pretend it never happened. But unfortunately, it's too late now. The damage has already been done. So at this point, where do we go from here? That question has been on my mind lately, and I even asked myself this. Personally, I don't know. I don't know where we can go from here. Heard a lot of people want Chuck E. Cheese to die, shut down, and fade into obscurity in a similar vein at Discovery Zone. And honestly, feel free to disagree with me, but I don't want to see it happen. Don't get me wrong, as incompetent as CEC is right now, what people don't realize that if Chuck E. Cheese does go out of business, then that's not good for the family entertainment center market. That only left Dave & Buster's uncontested, and they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. We need competition because competition is what's good for the consumer. It allows the consumer to have option to choose. If you don't have any competition and sit there celebrating the death of the Chuck E. Cheese brand, it's bad for you and it's bad for me. I just cannot imagine it when Dave & Buster's and Bolero are the two only family entertainment center taking over the entire market. I mean, that would be awful. I mean, here's the thing. If it wasn't for Chuck E. Cheese, then other places like Dave & Buster's wouldn't even exist. Chuck E. Cheese helped push the envelope of what an arcade family restaurant should be. Sure, the arcade restaurant exists before CEC, but CEC helped revolutionize that. Granted, it may not pan out in terms of sales, but that doesn't mean they don't change the game. You don't have to like what CEC is doing. Hell, I don't like what Chuck E. Cheese is doing. But at the same time, I don't want to see Chuck E. Cheese die. But if Chuck E. Cheese die, then where's the push to do better? So, I don't know. I don't know where we can go from here. Honestly, I think the only way we can go up from here is that if the restaurants or fun centers, yuck, do go away one day, and most likely it will, not because of CEC's bad decisions, but because how cutthroat and expensive these businesses and these corporations are doing right now in general. If that were to happen, the only way I see Chuck E. Cheese brand survives is they have to go multimedia. I know David McKillop is still doing that now, but if you really do think about it, that is the only way for the Chuck E. Cheese IP to survive. The nostalgic merchandise in the animated project seemed like it was feasible to rush it for the Chuck E. Cheese brand going forward. Especially now that YouTube become a thing, I believe Chuck E. Cheese will survive through YouTube. So we'll just have to wait and see. To end this whole rant on a positive note, even though that CEC has seen better days, I will still hold the brand a special place in my heart. It makes me not only who I am today, but it really did change my life. If it's not Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, or Disney, or anything like that, I have to go with Chuck E. Cheese. I always loved the characters, I always loved the songs, always loved the entertainment, and it really puts me in a happy mood. As a kid, I loved going to places like Chuck E. Cheese, or Toys R Us, or Circus City, or KB Toys, and all that stuff. But there's something about Chuck E. Cheese that really captivates me. And once I dug deep into the Chuck E. Cheese lore and joined the community for the past several months, my love for Chuck E. Cheese grew more and more, and I learned more and more. Sure, not everything is all sunshine and lollipops, but that doesn't stop me from loving the snarky, adorable, cool pizza rat that meant so much to me. And finally, even if CEC Corporate doesn't care about their history no matter what they say it, we do. And it's best for the community to keep the legacy of Chuck E. Cheese alive any way we can. Support them through merch, their legacy stores, SME Super Service Station, fan private shows from various CEC YouTubers, or many CEC YouTubers in general that you should go out and support. Or, as a matter of fact, make your own stuff. The best thing about the Chuck E. Cheese community is that they are super creative at making their own stuff. They really do inspire me to make my own Chuck E. Cheese project. Maybe not now, but one day I will. Just to show my love and passion for the pizza rat that made all us kids can still be kids.
Yeah, they'll always be special to me.
Alright, enough of the cheesiness. Pun intended. Thank you guys for watching this long rant video. It took me so much time to write this script and edit it out, but the wait is well worth it. I hope you guys enjoy it, and even though I'm probably not going to make another rant style video like this anytime soon, but stay tuned for more CEC related content or non-CEC related content coming to this channel very soon. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. So with that said, God bless and take care.